All right. So, hi everyone. My name is Alex Khvastovich. I am teacher with Job Easy. I know I didn't introduce myself on the first class, so we'll do a little introduction now. I've been working in QA for about maybe 10 years now, 9 years. I've been doing different positions from junior to senior to QA manager, um, mostly in startups and startups that eventually grew into big companies. So I have quite a lot of experience to share, and this is what we'll be doing. I will be sharing my experience. I'll be teaching you how to be QA engineers. I'll be teaching you interview questions. I'll be looking through your homework with test cases and bugs. Also, this class, which will be about Waterfall, Agile, Scrum approaches. Now, I'm going to share a link with you for this specific folder where you can pick up some materials and read. Just let me grab that. Okay, here's the link. Let me know if you can access it and you see the files in this folder. Awesome. And a little bit more about me. You can find me on LinkedIn and add me. I've been a little bit busy lately, so I don't reply as fast as I used to. But here's my page. If you have LinkedIn, you can add me now. If not, you can add me later when you will have one. And so a little bit more about me. My English is not as good as people who are born and raised here in the States, because English is my second language. So just for you to be familiar with that. And also it shows that in IT industry, you don't really have to have perfect English. I use some help when sending emails out. I use Grammarly as an application to help me correct the mistakes. Um, when I started, I had little knowledge about computers. I was maybe I could reinstall Windows by myself. Really, that's it. That was the top of the my knowledge about computer world, and I never actually graduated. I started several colleges, different colleges, accounting, psychology, and just left, stopped educating, not because I had bad grades, just because I figured out, I didn't want to do it. I wanted to do something else. And in the end, I was following like something that I could apply immediately and start working, start making good money. And I found a QA. So I went through a boot camp. I did a boot camp, the same thing like you're doing right now. And after that, I started working as a QA engineer. Looks like the LinkedIn I shared with you is something else. Let me find the proper link, the profile link, not the feed. Okay, so yesterday, or not yesterday, the previous class, can you give me some feedback on it? How did you like it? What did you remember? Things that you found interesting? Not the yesterday, the previous class. Okay. So software development life cycle. Did you guys remember what it is? Types of testing. Okay. So we will be talking about software development lifecycle today a little bit, but in terms of approaches to or styles to um, of a product development, bug lifecycle, JIRA, graphical user interface. Okay, good. So as you can see on the slide, we're discussing Waterfall, Agile, Scrum, and reporting bugs to JIRA. We're not gonna do a whole lot on reporting bugs to JIRA, but I'll do some basic coverage. And I don't think you still have JIRA access, or you don't have it yet. You will have it later, but just overall the overview for that. Okay, so this is software development lifecycle, right? Um, you start with figuring out what kind of project you want to do, what kind of product you want to build. Will well, that's something that will run. The market will get it. Then you go with analysis. You figure out mm, details of it. How much money would you really need? The how long it's gonna take. Then you have a design, what kind of technology um, will be used. You will figure out what kind of framework maybe will be used. Then implementation, building process, and then testing that actually goes back to evaluation. And if that's a cycle, if it's repeatable, let's say you started like another round of feature building. And this is a waterfall approach. Now, the waterfall model is a relatively linear sequential design approach for certain areas of engineering design. In software development, it tends to be among the less iterative and flexible approaches as progress slows in largely one direction, downwards like a waterfall, through the phases of conception, initiation, analysis, design, construction, testing, deployment, and maintenance. So if you look at this, does this seems to be familiar with software development lifecycle? Right. And this is because it kind of appeared in the same time, right? When the software development lifecycle appeared, there had to be some development approach, and waterfall approach was made. And it's pretty much like, if you think about it, it's like water going down the stairs from step 1 to step 6, right? At first, you get the requirements, then you do the design, then product is implemented, then it's thoroughly tested, everything that's been implemented, everything's getting fixed, then it gets deployed, and then there's only maintenance stage. Waterfall projects are a year, maybe a couple years projects, sometimes more, but they have a lot of documentation beforehand. Everything developed in huge chunks that take quite some time, maybe a couple months, 2 3 months. So first everybody works on the requirements. It doesn't really stop when you're done, but the biggest part of it is completed. Then the design part takes place, so everything is kind of thought through, how it's going to work, where it's going to end, how much resources are needed, the dates are set, and there's a plan that the team is following for the whole product, for the whole features. If you think about this approach, which companies might be using this right now, this particular approach? Big box stores. Let's talk about IT companies. What kind of IT companies could use waterfall approach? was transitioning to online. Okay. Apple, Riot Games, Samsung. Oh, any startup. So, I have a question. What is the difference between software development lifecycle and waterfall? So waterfall is a model of how software developer lifecycle is implemented, right? So if you think about software development lifecycle, it's a car, right? Or just any generic car. And waterfall in this particular case would be like a truck, right? Some specific model of a truck, depending on the implementation. So IT companies use Waterfall to develop, design, debug. All right, so Donald, you have a really good guess here. Larger companies would use this approach given that they would have larger budget and time. Yes, absolutely right. Um, one thing that you will get used to and probably should start getting used to right now, when you have a question, first thing you want to do, start Googling, start doing your research. And this is something that will be part of your QA career from now on. When you have an interview and you'll be asked question how you approach solving a problem, your answer should be, first of all, I'll try to figure it out. So I will go and look through company documentation. If I don't find an answer there, I'll go and search online, whatever Stack Overflow, Google. After that, only after that, I'll go and ask my QA colleague, then a developer, and then I'll go to a manager. So you kind of go um, step by step, starting from your own research. That's very important because even though it is absolutely okay to ask questions in IT industry, and everybody, especially when new people join, they have to figure out what the product is, how it works. Even if a programmer with 10 years of experience in some other companies joins a new company, they can't start coding right away. There's always something called a learning curve, and it takes maybe a month or two to get familiar with the project, understand the product, how it works, what tools are used. So there's always training on the job, always. But even though it's okay to ask questions, the first step always should be doing a little research, trying to figure out things yourself. That's the part of the whole, engineering. Um, so yes, uh, good guess, Donald. Waterfall approach is mostly used by big companies, and if you think about it, right now, how do startups operate? They try to get money from investors and build MVP, which is called minimum viable product, something that has minimal amount of features like Instagram, where you can only leave likes and post photos without filters. So no comments, just your account, and you post photos in the feed, and other people can leave likes. That's like MVP of Instagram, or a Ferrari without was only one gear, something like that. It's just something that works, and that's it. And any startup starts with basic investments, then they show what they did for that money, and then they get some more, and then they show again. Sometime later, they show again how the product is developing, is it acquiring market, and then they get even more money. That's how it kind of works. So for them, following waterfall model would be really difficult until they're like really big and they have the resources, because it's hard to be focused on writing excessive documentation um, when you have deadline to meet, just to show basic development progress. Okay, so thinking about that, what other companies then would be using waterfall right now? Think about companies that have a lot of money, companies that have a lot of regulations to follow. So having documentation in place and sticking to the plan is extremely important. And obviously have time. Could be Microsoft. Okay. What about government companies? Have you ever seen any like government resource lately? .gov, DMV website, maybe, or like Loft Ferrari was one gear. Yeah. So remember the story when the pandemic hit and the unemployment system couldn't keep up because it was written, I think it was in New Jersey or tri-state area there, New England, because it was written in Cabal or Cabal, whatever, the pretty old programming language, and they couldn't find any uh, programmers to work on it right now. And when the system was designed in place, it never, you know, never was done to serve so many requests at the same time. So it was crashing. And it was written back in the, I don't know, maybe 80s with a certain requirements in place. And since then, wasn't touched. Right. Um, so then we come to a certain amount of companies that actually could be using that. Maybe some healthcare companies that have a lot of insurance money coming in or patients money coming in that have to follow certain security standards, like not sharing personal information for everything has to be planned, how it's going to be rolled out, especially if there's any data transfer involved, the private data. uh, Government companies that have government contracts to fulfill and have tons of money to work on that, maybe some military technical products that could be a possibility, and banks like huge financial industries or giants like uh, technical giants, maybe like IBM. So companies that already have a streamlined resources, have uh, don't really have a deadline to push and show to like investors, and have to follow regulations. A good example would be, let's say, Bank of America has a team that does trading, and they need to build a secure chat application. They can't use Skype, they can't use Slack, they can't use Zoom. So everything they use normally in high security companies, or mostly at any big company that does deal with data and financials, uh, they build their own stuff. So for them, it's easier to find engineers and tell them, "Hey, you build this. It has to be secured. We have the money. Give us a plan. Give us how long it's going to take. What will you need?" And they'll bring together the people. They'll figure out what needs to be done, and they'll start building it. So there's no MVP to deliver. There has to be a thorough testing when the job is completed. Anything that's broken has to be fixed. So normally, if you think about it, corporations can afford having waterfall approach. It's an older approach, but it's robust, and it's approach that is very well documented. Okay, is that clear? So waterfall is pretty much software development life cycle model, how the software is developed, but in the specific design, right? Now, because we live in 2020 and it's a world of startups now, not so long ago, and we'll do a little googling in a second, but an agile approach was developed. So, agile software development is an approach to software development under which requirements and solutions evolve through the collaborative effort of self-organizing and cross-functional teams and their customers and users. It advocates adaptive planning, evolutionary development, early delivery, and continual improvement, and it encourages rapid and flexible response to change. And you can see this agile Also looks like CDL a lot because those are both methodologies, approaches of like CDL. But it is, instead of following like in a linear path, comparing to waterfall, it actually circles. Now, why is that? Give me a guess in the chat. Why is it circles? Always developing, right? There are changes in the requirements, so it's also possible. So the software can adapt to the needs of users as it grows and expands, continues to improve, nonstop process. Right. You're guys correct. So the major difference between Waterfall and Agile, Waterfall at the same time kind of sets a goal to finish everything and kind of looks into the future in terms of this is the project, this is how we're going to end it and deliver. We have a year or 2 years to deliver it, or maybe more, whatever. It depends on how big the project is. And we're going to work on that until it's completely done. And after that, we only will support the product. Maybe we'll roll an update once in 2 months or 3 months. And that's it. And mostly just fix customer bugs. Agile, as we talked about startups, their approach is different. So startup gets initial money for developing MVP, which is minimum viable product, right? And they have to present something. They need to build Instagram where you can only upload a photo in the feed and live alike. No comments, no photo filters, nothing. Just something very basic. And that's going to be a set of features that team is working for a month or two, sometimes less. Those iterations of development are called sprints. And then when the sprint is over, those two features were built. Now you can add comments on Instagram and add filters. The new sprint starts. And that can also, go for 2 weeks or a month or 2 months, 2 months stops. And some other features are being added to work on. And so pretty much the process repeats itself every sprint, right? It does go through stages, but those stages are repetitive and they're short. You don't look at the whole project at the same time from beginning to the end. You pick a set of features that you will be working on, or the company will be working on, and then in a short period of time they deliver those features and they add those features to their product MVP, and the product gets more and more and more complex. So if you think about Instagram as an example, if we started talking about it, when it just showed up as a startup, even when Facebook bought it, it was already a working product. You could upload pictures, the filters, and probably taking pictures of food was the main thing of it, right? The platform. Right now, years after, it changed a lot. Now it's about stories. There wasn't possibilities for the video at the beginning. Then it was only like short videos. Now you can have even longer videos. It's about like personal blogs in the Instagram, and it's shifted a lot into kind of advertisement, personal advertisement place, right? So this is an example of how from sprint to sprint, more things are added, and it gets more and more and more and more complicated, right? The product gets more and more complicated. So pretty much everything now use agile approach. Yeah, a lot of a lot of the companies use agile approach. There are several different agile approaches. Now I'm going to give you a little homework, unofficial homework, which you will do just in your own time. I won't be asking or checking for that, but go ahead and find and read more about difference between Agile, Scrum, and Waterfall. There's also about maybe 20 other different sub styles and cross styles between those. We don't need to know them all. We really need to know only about Waterfall, Agile, and Scrum, and we'll talk about Scrum in a moment. But yeah, do a little research on all the approaches available. I think I'll also touch Kanban shortly. So from what I've talked, can you summarize in chat what you understood the major difference between Waterfall and Agile? Agile continues to develop, adding new features. Okay. What else? Agile is small parts built step by step and it grows. Okay. What else? Waterfall is more like a linear software development cycle where there are set goals, and Agile is always developing and introducing more features. Good. Um, that's very good. Waterfall is pre-planned. Agile grows with new budgets. And Agile is a lot more flexible, right? There's no contract in place that says we will develop this and this is how much we're going to charge you. The market might change. Now, Instagram is not as popular anymore. Maybe Snapchat is, or there's another application. So we need to do something. We need to add something. We need to change something. And you can go different direction while you're developing to understand what the market really wants and to adjust. That's possible with Agile. What companies would use Agile and what companies would prefer using Waterfall? Now, knowing all that we talked about. Waterfall, no. Waterfall doesn't work as simple as Ferrari with one gear. No, it's not how it works. So, when Waterfall delivers a Ferrari, they build the whole car with all the gears. Everything is working. Everything. But then you can't add more features, you can't change colors. Everything was in the contract. They took a couple of years to build it. This is your Waterfall. It's tested, it's ready to go, everything's done. When you're following Agile, the Ferrari going to be built, but MVP of Ferrari will have only one gear and no paint, right? And then you're through other sprint cycles, through iterations of development, you're gonna add more stuff to it. But you're also flexible. You can make your Ferrari different colors, and even change the engine at some point if you want. That's the major difference, right? John, is that clear? Yeah, like the Lego. Okay. Yeah, Waterfall is a lot of documentation, and the product is delivered as per contract. Everything is done in it. It's a complete thing. Agile is ongoing. Seems like TikTok uses Agile very well. Well, could be. Um, what video games companies are usually Agile because they're always introducing new features in games. That could be. So basically, Waterfall can change once it's done, but Agile can change and upgrade it even after it's done. So the thing was Agile, I think Agile is never done. Never done really. There's always something, and I'll show you kind of how it works, but it's always ongoing. Most of Fortune 500 use Agile approach. Uh, I have a question: why we use Waterfall when Agile seems more something? So, what is an example of an application that uses Waterfall? Waterfall is more likely a build in your house. Yeah, that's a good example. Government software and websites seems like they're mostly Waterfall since they have a main purpose, right? Why we use Waterfall? Why companies would build something we cannot add more features or upgrade? Um, so because Waterfall is better at building robust products that are thoroughly tested. Agile can fail. Agile can deliver partially completed product. Agile has a lot more room for issues. Now, Waterfall is thoroughly tested, and when it's released, the product is pretty much completed. So, going back to Waterfall, as I said, corporations and banks that have um, a lot of resources to spare. They don't need to ask investors or be watched by investors. They have their own resources. Their main concern when developing a product that the product follows government standards, right? And it is robust, it is secure, and they don't care that it might take some time to build, but everything should be planned and written down on paper from the beginning to the end of the project. There's a contract, there's a date when the product is delivered, and they're absolutely okay with it, right? So established companies use Waterfall. Yeah, some of them. I'll tell you this: companies can use multiple approaches per different teams. Different teams develop and work on different products, and companies can have different teams working in different approaches. So maybe a company that does some front end work or like a web page can hire someone that will use agile approach for a healthcare system, maybe, right? That's possible. The site will have changes. It has to bring like back uh 2020 back to the UI, so it looks nice. It's not as bad as, because it never was managed properly. It's not back like in the 90s. But then when they take the back end for that kind of a project, they need to move along a lot of patients' data. They have to be very careful with it. Maybe they're gonna do a waterfall project that will take a couple of years to migrate all the data. Um, just because they have to make absolutely sure that the personal data is not exposed. So to answer your question, can company be using Waterfall, Agile, and Scrum? It is not very likely. Usually, if it's a smaller to a medium company, they will stick to one approach. But huge companies that have a lot of different divisions and different products, multiple teams, very well can work using different approaches to finish their product. We will talk about Scrum. We're not there yet. So it does depend on what you're building. More work for QA and agile companies. I would say in general, in agile companies and startup, companies, there are normally more work to do, because in corporate there's set responsibilities that one person needs to do, including QA. There's certain things that are already well established and laid out. Even if you're not in the development stage, maybe you're joining the corporate and then they're already released their product and they're in maintenance support. You still be looking for bugs. You still be doing like your tests, but it's going to be a lot slower. There'll be just a fixed set of responsibilities, and most of them will be documented really well. When you join startups and you work in Agile, everybody kind of wear multiple hats at the same time. I mean, you're still a QA engineer, but you will be doing this and that. Maybe you will have to plug in your own computer and figure out how do you connect to the corporate network, stuff like that. So it's not going to be readily available. Um, Maybe you'll have to figure out what kind of tools you want to use. So a lot of the things will be um, done by you. And yes, so there are a lot of uh, more ways to grow, I would say, in Agile than in Waterfall. So John, still don't get why and when use one and when and why the other. So Waterfall is used in big corporations that have a lot of time and resources that are not dependent on investors, and they have to follow rigor requirements to make sure when the product is delivered, it's completely made, finished, meaning it's ready to go, it's secured. Um, it's a product that is already done right at the end, and all the company has to do is support it, do some maintenance and like bug fixes that users report. And Agile is repetitive development and working on small features, normally trying to build MVP first, um, hungry for investment money to keep on stay in business and work more until they become profitable. And they're flexible with their requirements. They can change it. They can adjust the product to the market on the go. And that's normally used by startups and smaller to medium companies. Is that a little better, John? Okay. What tools would you recommend for Agile with CRM and B2B as well as B2C? The tools would very well depend on the product. Every company will have, you know, um, almost everyone now are out of the tools for everything. Almost everyone now using JIRA. That's probably the top tool that used for all the companies, startups and big corporations. But everything else has to be different. And let's let's think about that. When you work as a tester or a QA engineer in a company that uh, has medical devices, like for elderly, maybe the device that mm, measures your pulse and your daily activity, and if something happens to that person, they send a call or a message to relatives, or even can call 911, right? That's one sort of a product. Think about testing that product. Then you work on another company that created an app where you can take a selfie and change and put something over your face and make it look funny. And then you work on a company that like Tesla, that has self-driving cars. And then you work in a company that sells tickets to cheap travel destinations. Okay, so you can kind of imagine the difference in the tools for all of those products, right? So the scale of it is just insane. The type of QA jobs and things that will be done at the company could differ a lot, greatly. I mean, the main thing was the QA understanding the testing approach, the concept of testing, and a lot of the stuff that you will be actually doing will be, because it has to be, learned on the job. That's just how the industry works. So anything that has code, and a lot of things do have code right now, um, coffee makers, microphones, even speakers, even Bluetooth, uh, your Bluetooth device, whatever, actually, your modem, um, microwave, I don't know, wearables, cars. Can you guess how many lines of code a modern luxury car can have up to, or could have? How many lines of code? 10,000. Anybody else? 100,000. Hmm. Anybody else? Million. Anybody else? 100 million. Yeah, that's pretty spot on. That's most of the modern cars. 100 million lines of code. Now, luxury cars can have to up to 200 million. 200 million. What about uh what about smartwatch? Yeah, it could depend. I'm not to witchcraft, I listen to professionals. 50 million. So, a lot. A lot of lines of code. Because nowadays smartwatch are doing GPS, right? They're measuring your heart rate, and they're measuring your sleep. Some of them, well, the apps, or if it's a native app, they can do get your oxygen levels. The latest one was Apple Watch, right? So the more stuff you add, the more feature it has to do, the more code it obviously has. Now, plus on top of that, your amount of the lines of code that actually been served on the device will change depending on how many apps you have it installed. So the number changes, but it's a lot. Uh, I would guess in the millions. I don't know the answer myself, right? But I would guess in the millions. But a coffee maker, you have made me think about that a lot. Yeah, so almost anything in our world today has code in it. And anything that has code has to be tested. That's the thing. So when you're thinking about all the QA jobs out there and the opportunities, there are endless opportunities and types of testing that has to be done. Um, somebody hack your coffee maker. Yeah, somebody can hack your coffee maker. That's a possibility. Absolutely. Even more than that, somebody can hack your Tesla or your other car that, if there's a way to connect to it, Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, it's possible. Anything that has code and has some sort of a connection to the outer environment, communication established, uh, can be hacked. It's not easy to do, but it's possible. And on top of just testing different products, there's also different type of testing, and there's um, a testing for like language testing, right? Localization testing, pretty much, where the job of the tester would be to verify, let's say you're fluent in Russian and English, and they have a game that they want to put on the Russian market. You will be verifying the game that the translation is correct, and not only it's correct, but it will sound properly in that country. It's not just translating words, but do they actually say that there? How do you make it feel proper to the end user in the particular country? So there's a lot of testing that can be done in a lot of different products. All right. So just to give you an impression, the scale of it, and I think testing in terms of like, is it an important job? I would say it's very important because programmers, for them, writing it's their code. I mean, sometimes it's hard for them to accept their mistakes or to fix them, or to read the requirements and interpret the requirements in the way that product owner actually wanted it to be that way, but they kind of implemented it differently. So for them, it's just quite normal to kind of skip things because they're not used to look for issues, or they're not used to kind of breaking the code in a way like doing something that user wouldn't normally user actually would normally do, but a developer wouldn't normally think about the user doing that. So QA is actually very important. Maybe it's not as technical requirements are not as a developer, senior developer, just a developer to understand the code, and it's not as technical, but it's still very important because in the end, when the product hits the market, you might be using it. Maybe your parents will be using it. Not all, all of the people, but also like friends, and so you're actually like safeguarding their sleep to make sure that the product they're using is safe and it's pleasant to use and it's useful, right? Nobody wants an app that crashes every 5 minutes. Nobody wants a wearable medical device that fails to report to 911. I mean, uh, some of the things that are there on the market, they're made to make people's life easier, but also in a way support their lives. So if that support fails, bad things can happen. So QA job is very, very important. All right. So, but we're kind of stuck here on that slide. Let's move along. All right. So let's take a look at this uh, slide here. So it's waterfall versus agile. What do you see? What does this slide tell you guys? Lots of QA for agile. So at the very bottom, we have a timeline, right? If you look at the timeline, it's saying maybe, let's say, 2 years of a time happened. Within those 2 years, what happened was waterfall and what happened was agile cycle. It's going to be actually going to be less than that, but I think it's theoretical. If we look at agile cycles in a period of, like, let's say 2 years, we'll probably have to have more than 48 cycles at the bottom. Waterfall is more organized. That's true. Absolutely true. Straightforward path was waterfall and recurring for agile. Yes. Agile consists of small waterfall cycles. Not entirely so. Agile consists of feature cycles that being worked on. So in Agile, multiple tasks are being worked on. In Waterfall as well, multiple tasks are being worked on, but it's about the delivery, right? And the phases of delivery. Now, all of the development happens here, all of it. It's the biggest chunk of time. And all of the testing happens here. It's also a huge chunk of time because you test everything that was developed, report issues, and they're being fixed. So this is just humongous. Two huge periods of time that happen in this project. There's also planning and design phase, and those are two pretty big because all of the documentation, the contract is in place, all the documentation, uh, hiring, understanding the resources needed, everything is on paper and documented. Even the QA phase testing is here. Over here, you will be also planning for testing and creating QA documentation stuff. So there's a lot of stuff happening, but everything is completed in those like big chunks. And at the end, you get a ready product that users can consume, and that's it. It doesn't really need more updates. There's a contract that was fulfilled, the product was delivered. There's just the maintenance happening. Agile is a small cycles, maybe 3 features per release, and it keeps on repeating and adding more features and adding and adding. The more features added, the more possibility for bugs. That's true. Agile is more like putting together a puzzle, right? Agile is more like putting together a puzzle that has no end. Like there's no, puzzle has like 10 pieces, like 100 pieces, 1,000 pieces, 10,000 pieces on it on the box. If you grab an agile puzzle, instead of number of pieces, it will have this infinity sign on it, and then puzzle can change. Like the pieces can rearrange and change, so it's really ongoing and flexible, like matrix code. Yeah, true that. It gives space for the investors to make whatever software they're investing down the road. Exactly, absolutely right. That's agile, yes. So let's say if we had resources and we need to choose between agile and waterfall, it would be better to do waterfall. It will depend on the product. If you need to release for a government project an emergency call button for seniors, and you make sure it's fail safe, you go down with waterfall because their life depends on the functionality of this device, and there are certain government guides and restrictions how it should work, standards, and the same thing with healthcare, data security. So that would be probably a waterfall project. When it's released, it has to be super safe, following all the guidelines. We're talking about like people's lives here. That's very important. Um, But if you're building an app that can change the face that on your selfie and add like dog eyes and stuff, yeah, I think Agile is fine. Is that clear? Yeah. Something like Facebook that changes would use Agile. So I think in terms of Facebook, this is too big of a company to say are they using Agile or are they using Waterfall. I'm pretty sure in Facebook there are certain teams that probably use Waterfall, and there are certain teams that use Agile. It really depends on what they're building in the end. There's so many different products that Facebook has under its umbrella right now. Yes, they can use both. They can use a mixture. They can use multiple approaches. In the same time, not really in the same time, but different teams. One company has multiple teams and multiple projects, right? So different teams can use different approaches. And there are hybrids of those approaches, and that's your homework to read more about different approaches of the software development. You'll read there are multiple other. We're just talking about those because this is what prepares you for the interview. All right. So now we talk about Scrum. So Agile is like a parent, and Scrum is like a baby of Agile. It's called Agile Scrum. It's even faster and more aggressive than Agile. Your Agile release cycle for a certain amount of features, about a month or two. It does have more of a standard structure of like managers and project owners, hierarchies is more likely to be similar to saying what you see in Waterfall in teams for Agile. With Scrum, it's pretty much a continuation and a framework of Agile, but a faster, more aggressive approach to software development. It's designed for teams from 3 to 9 members, so smaller teams. On that team, you will have a couple QA engineers, several developers, design artists, so Scrum Master. So it's like this team is like a working team where everyone kind of equal on the same level, but everyone's responsible for their own stuff. QAs for QA, developers for developer, and the tools are picked by the team. So it's pretty much everyone is kind of delivering through the process. Who break their work into actions that can be completed within time-boxed iterations called sprints. No longer than 1 month. I don't normally see even sprints 1 month long in Agile in Scrum, and most commonly 2 weeks. Yes. Then track progress and replan in 15 minutes time box stand-up meetings called daily scrums. So we'll talk about that in details a little bit later. But looking at this, and this is an ideal world. Looking at this diagram here, you have sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3. Sprint 1 lasts 3 weeks. Sprint 2 lasts 3 weeks. Sprint 3 lasts 2 weeks. Within those sprints, QA has to do different tasks, normally like from analyzing the requirements, building test cases, developing test cases, running test cases, verifying completed code, uh, finding bugs, filing bugs, verifying fixes. Then sprint is done, another sprint is out, new features go in, and then there's something that they call here stabilization sprint and deployment. So at the end, after 2 sprints, the product gets an official update for everybody who uses the product. For like, it's your, let's say your Instagram now has features to be able to add comments, to do videos, maybe to do live videos and all of that stuff. So feature sprints, stabilization sprints, and deployment. Now, all of this is an ideal world. pretty much. Most likely sprints are set in place. Most of them are 2 weeks in Scrum right now. Sometimes 3 weeks, and then at the end of the sprints, you do get the releases that go into um, the production. And production meaning that it's something that the actually users use. There's like development environment where developers do their code. Then there's a testing environment where testers do testing of developers' code. So developers keep on working on development. Development gets like frozen at certain features that being in there. It gets kind of copied into testing environment. Those features being verified by testers, and after that, it goes into the production, right? Sprints are before pilots. What do you mean by that? So sprint is a set period of time that is established by teams on how long we will be working on a certain amount of features. Well, I'll show you more. You'll get more clear picture of that as we go. So I think, okay, this is the slides and this stuff is kind of done. But let's read about Agile and Scrum a little bit more. So Agile, let's go and read Agile Manifesto. So there's something called Agile Manifesto, and it was published in February 2001. So Agile, you can say it's pretty much, what, 19 years old? Here's the manifesto on Agile. Probably we can grab. Okay. Oh, this is, so we're uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So in Agile, business people talk with the developers all the time, trying to guide them kind of what the customers wants and help developers to make sure that the product that they're building is shaping well. Work in software over comprehensive documentation. So that means Agile will be more focused on actually delivering product than writing documentation around that product. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So not locking customers in a contract, but continuous talks with customers on how, getting their feedback on the work progress. Things can change, right? Responding to change over following a plan. So this is all like contradicts Waterfall. That is, while there is a value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. And those are the people that kind of signed under this Agile manifesto, right? The people that actually came up with it. So it was done in 2001, not so long ago. And then from there, different approaches kind of grew. Now, your kind of classic Agile sprint would last 2 months, right? About 2 months. And now you have Scrum, which is even faster. That sprints last about for several weeks, 2 weeks. Let's take a look at JIRA. And this is like just like a little interview, a preview. You'll understand a lot more and we'll work on that. But let's grab a project. It has both Kanban and Scrum board. Okay. So here's a backlog, right? Backlog is like a bookshelf where you have all the books that you need to read. And backlog is always something being added there. This is in Agile, this is in Scrum. So a new feature, something has to be built eventually, gets into the backlog. Bug being opened, something found that is not like blocker, mission critical, It's not stopping your Ferrari from driving, gets added to the backlog. So backlog is like a collection of tickets. Some of them are feature tickets, means that you need to develop some functionality. And another word for those tickets are stories. Stories and feature tickets are responding to pretty much your documentation. So how the things should work. And this is like, hey, business wants that our banking application will have access for regular users and super users. Now, super user ticket is that will have a description what super users can do, like how to log in and stuff like that. So it's going to be a task. Now, if a ticket is too big, ticket pretty much becomes an epic, and it becomes a collection of other tickets. So um, you can think about stories like chapters of a book, and epic like a whole book. So you have this backlog, which is a shelf of books. You have epics, which is books itself, and you have stories that are inside those books. When the sprint starts, and over here we have some stuff here. Let's move it back to the backlog. We'll have to click confirm a lot, but let's do it so you can like visually see what's going on. There's actually a bunch. Almost there. So far, any questions of what I've been talking about? All right. So you start working at a startup, right? You don't have any sprints yet. It's just the beginning of your project. There's a backlog with tons of ideas on what needs to be done for this project. Uh, it's sorted by priority, what's going in first. And let's say, we have an Instagram app to build, or we already have some Instagram functionality. Now, before the sprint starts, there's a sprint planning where developers um, missed out on what you're talking about now. Right now, we're going to talk about how overall a modern startup functions in terms of how the work is distributed, how the actual sprints happen. It's not directly related to QA jobs and responsibilities, but it's understanding on of process overall. So features are built within a sprint. Sprint are a fixed amount of time that lasts from certain date to certain date. So if we plan the sprint, um, we select how long it's gonna last. So let's say sprint gonna last from um, today, and let's give it 2 weeks until 18th. That's the sprint. 2 weeks we have, and sprint goal: develop, improve Instagram app, whatever. So this is the sprint. It's not started yet. We're just planned for it. We're in a meeting. Several developers, several QA engineers, Scrum Master, and product owner. Maybe also art people, the people that draw stuff, design people. Okay. So we know in this sprint we want to do leave likes thing. Say we're like really small, we don't have a lot of developers, like only two, and then or maybe one. Let's have one developer, and leave comments. That's the story we want to complete, and maybe fix that bug, right? Okay. Now, the complexity of stories, how much time it's gonna take to finish the story, is done by developers during the meeting. Developers together kind of vote on the story complexity and assign points to it. Those points are assigned in Fibonacci sequence from 0 to 13. Anything that is more complex than 13 is pretty much like an epic already, okay? In this case, 13 means work load about 2 weeks. It's not set in time, but 8 hours about a week. 8 points is about a week. 5 points is, and 3 points like in medium complexity story. Several days maybe. 1 to 2 points stories are like a day or 2 days of work. So a team of developers looks at this story before it gets in, well, when it's selected for sprint. Live likes in Instagram, right? Or live likes in Instagram. And they assign a number of story points. Okay, this is actually 8 points. And it will be assigned to John, for example, right? So if John works on this and it's 8 points, it's gonna take him a week plus to finish, and we have sprint that lasts 2 weeks. Maybe John can also do this story and have it because it's 3 points. So 11 points together. I mean, he's pretty much booked for the entire sprint with all those tasks. And by the end of the sprint, he should complete them. Maybe he can also take on this bug because it's just a 1-point bug. It's not very complex to fix. Okay. So all of the tasks assigned to John. And then the sprint starts. And then you just click like start sprint and it goes. Now, John's tasks within the sprint as developer to complete the stories, fix this bug. Your task as a Q engineer, or one, John completes this story to verify it works as it's supposed to. If you find any issue, file bugs. Also verify this works as it's supposed to while when John's done on it. Also, if you find any bugs, log those bugs and then verify it's fixed and verify fix for this bug. On top of that, you probably will also have like a task plan that you normally run through every sprint just to make sure nothing else that's already in production will get broken, right? And then when the sprints end, those stories get out of the backlog, out of the sprint. They're just going into the history like an archive. And the team discusses how the sprint went. Was it good? Was it too much work? Not enough work? Was it complicated? Were there any issues? How the issues were solved? And then the new sprint starts. And then when the new sprint starts, new stories are selected, and the new features are being worked on, and it goes and goes and goes. So we have epics that are more like business requirements, right? You can think about epics as books in a bookshelf. Well, then there's stories. Epic has a bunch of stories in it, like a book that would have a bunch of stories in it, right? So something like that. Story, add likes, and another story as add comments, so on. Within the sprint, there are also bugs that you file or somebody else finds and files. There could be tasks, something that came up and needs to be done. Also will be added, can be added during the sprint, and then can be subtasks. Now, subtasks is something that developers put for themselves within stories when they're working on it normally. So story can have maybe like 3 subtasks that developer needs to complete. And he determines what it is. Like in order to leave likes, I need to create heart symbol symbol, whatever, validate click, add click, and validate, add and validate click, and so on, whatever. Yeah, this is how it looks. Any questions so far? Is that clear what is actually happening here? All right. So again, if this story is like 8, and then this story is like 13, this entire epic is like already 21 points. So again, points are like measured in Fibonacci sequence, and they're not necessarily say how long something it will take, but more of a complexity, but it still relates to the time. So 3 points story, maybe you can finish it in 3, 4, 5 days. 13 points, you can't go over 13 points per sprint because it's like at least 2 weeks of work, right? Epics do not get completed in one sprint, but stories from the epics are selected that will be completed within this sprint. Now, we can also talk about Kanban really quick, and I'll show you what Kanban is and why it's kind of cool for QA to manage it in Kanban. Here's a Kanban board. Kanban is another style and approach to development similar to, well, not similar, but there's Agile, there's Scrum, there's Waterfall, there's Kanban. And Kanban is pretty much, there's no time within the sprint to complete something. Everything just in backlog, sorted by priority, and taken into development according to the priority. This is mostly placed for bugs, and this is good for QA. Like, you are not taking part in the sprint, you're not adding the complexity until you add bugs. All your bugs are displayed here in the Kanban in backlog. When you drag it into selected for developments, it automatically get added to the sprint. Now it does affect the sprint load, but still, it's prioritized and it's fixed, and it doesn't have to be fixed in the sprint though. You just have a collection of all the bugs you can monitor. So stuff is getting finished and selected by priority, and when it's done, the bug verified, it's fixed, it's gone. Okay. This is like the easy way for QA to kind of manage the bugs that are in alongside. And if something's found, another bug is found, you open the bug, it goes automatically here in the backlog. Okay. Now I want to hear like questions. Like, if you have something that needs to be figured out, ask me. When you start daily tasks in QA, do they already have test cases for the tester to test? In different approaches, there would be like different things. For Agile, your tasks, you will have some of the tasks, which is like your normal routine sprint task, like running through the test plan. But then when developer completes a story at some point, can be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and when they do, then you go and verify it. So this task kind of comes up in completely like waterfall project that only has like test cycles. You'll just be running tests daily, verifying that everything still works as it should, and going through the test plan. Your work going to be mostly pre-planned, right? When there's a release, obviously it's a lot of work. You have to retest everything, make sure everything still works, including new features. So it will be more work for that. So it will depend on the company and will vary, but you will normally have some tasks, right, ongoing. How long is your typical day in QA? You work as everybody else, 9 to 5 with a 1 hour lunch break normally. Yeah, you start your day. So in Scrum, that's the thing. You have something that's called daily meetings or daily stand-up that lasts 15 minutes. The whole Scrum team, and again, it's a small team, about 3 to 9 people, right? They get together in the circle and talk. Within those 15 minutes, everybody should talk and say what they did yesterday and what they're planning to do today. It's called, those meetings called like daily scrums. The person who facilitates overall Scrum process called Scrum Master. So Scrum Master looks over the JIRA board, looks over the daily meetings, helps, facilitating the process overall. And then you go along with your day, you check emails, you maybe start testing something. If you found a bug, you file a bug, then you go take lunch. After you're done taking lunch, developer maybe finish their working on their story, you go and verify it, you find some more issues, you tell them, they fix it, you verify the fixes, now you approve the story and move it from QA to completed, verified, and then the story gets into the out of the workload and ready for release. Um, a lot of video games being played, sweets eaten, coffee drink. Well, it's somewhat true and somewhat stereotype. So sometimes there's not too much work to do. People go to the gym, people do whatever they, whatever the job allows them to do. Other companies will do have a lot of work, and when you come to work, you just work from the start to the beginning. Then there are days of release that are more complex than other days, and you work more. So sometimes it's expected that you even overstay a little bit, and because if you're on a full time, it's not paid time, you just stay until the work is done, kind of thing. Every company, besides of software development life cycle in place, will have their own culture, their approach to work, workload. It's all going to be different. So this is something you learn at the job. Um, so some are less relaxed, other more like hardworking, I guess. So your uh, day in QA is from 9 to 5 normally, with emails being checked, work being done, lunch break, um, sometimes going to the gym, yes, during the lunch break or after work. That's possible too. It's not part of the work. When we'll be able to practice with Jira? Soon. I think you will have some more stuff to cover on like others, bug filing stuff, um, web console. So there's a little bit stuff you need to go over through, but then yes, homework. A lot of homework will be done in Jira. That's true too. In the interview process, are they looking for employees that think outside the box and analytical? So I would say during the interview process, at least for QA engineers, because QA engineer job is important, but it's not as technical as programmers. Like if a programmer needs to know C or Java to work on a specific project, that's what programmer needs to know. For QA engineers, QA engineer just need to understand how to kind of how testing works overall the process, and then the product they can learn tools and adjust on the job. That's fine. So first thing that I would say they're looking in a QA hire, how well the QA engineer will fit to the team into the team. If he is a good team player, if he's willing to work, if he's willing to learn, of course, knowing QA, answering the questions that that we teach here at the boot camp, that's very important. But it's more about being team player fitting and being able to do your research, being helpful, being well, just kind of soft skills, right? On top of your are you a people's person? Can you work in the team? Will you be able to communicate with developers. Sometimes developers not really willing to talk much, but you kind of have to find a way to talk to them and understand how this code works or how it should be tested better. Explain that there is issue and the requirements are not met. So I would say during the interview process, they're looking for a good fit, first of all. Will we learn about JIRA before the practice starts? Yes, we will. What is the next step after manual testing? Well, if you start your career as a manual tester, there's so many things that you can do and go doing. You can, first of all, multiple products to test, right? As we talked, hundreds and thousands of different types of things to test. Then different types of QA, from like localization QA to maybe more focused on like security or front end or back end. There's a lot of things that can be tested. From manual QA, you can learn automation and become an automation engineer. You can maybe you get into IT and then you understand you want to be a Scrum Master, so you can go and pick up like Scrum Master certification, become a Scrum Master. Maybe you want to become a product owner. It's also possible. Go and pick up another like a boot camp to learn more about it. QA is a very good way to enter into IT world, and then you kind of figure out what do you want to do with it. You want to continue to be a QA engineer? Do you want to use some other resources and learn like development, web development, or any other type of development, become a programmer? Or you want to become a DevOps eventually, or you can continue as QA, senior QA, become a QA manager, or be a automation engineer. There's so many ways to grow within the profession. A lot. Does cloud computing and QA have anything to do with each other? Absolutely. Anything that has code has QA in it. I'm pretty sure that AWS has their own QA team that's making sure that everything works as it's supposed to with their cloud computing. They probably can even have different QA assigned to different clients, like bigger clients. When we start our internship. So a lot of those questions that in regards of your scheduling and dates, access to JIRA, send an email to Job Easy Support. That's your best course on like getting the proper dates and directions. Just send email to support. Do you have to download JIRA? No, JIRA is, you don't have to download it. You can use it on the web page. All right. So when you, because class started late a little bit, right? Half an hour late. We're gonna probably end in 25 minutes, right? Is everyone cool with that? All right. So let's take a look on how bug is filed. So we're here in the Kanban board, and I'm also gonna have open something. Actually, I don't think we don't even need to file it. We'll just follow an example and then. Let me grab a project. Maybe this. Let's grab this and see what we got here. Doesn't have a screenshot. So you will be working on creating bugs just like that. Awesome. So this does have a screenshot. Let's take a look. So when you file a bug, you have a bug title. And in this case, we also have like some tags that help to determine what actually happened here. So it's a target and it's a web. So it's happened on the website, not an application. It's actually happened on the website. Product is target or maybe our customer. And there's a title that says filter in-store availability isn't working as expected. Okay. So something with the filter and if products are available in store. Then you have a bug description that pretty much summarize can be the same thing as a title if title is explicit enough and summarize everything, because title have to be short and descriptive. If something didn't actually fit, then you'll have to, you can in short description add more information, something that also related, can provide more details on what's happening. Then you have steps to reproduce, and this just shows it's highlighted. Yeah, well, I think what they wanted to do here, they wanted to do this, put in bold. So you go to the homepage at target.com, and then you can have an actual live link that is clickable. That's from another group. So I'm just editing some stuff that wasn't properly edited. On search menu so you pretty much provide the steps that a developer needs to take a look and understand what he needs to do to get the issue happen. On search menu on the header, enter electronic toys. Okay, choose a specific area. Oh, so you have to, I guess you have to be. So this app, I think that actually store misses the store. Okay, where do I select the store? Oh, here it is. Specific store. On the left side, select filter in stores. And it's not here. Oh. Okay. Add the store. And then add this. All right. For example, tap Leapfrog, my first learning tablet. So I think the product is actually not here anymore. Okay, here it is. Tap on it. Expected results, only available items should be on the page. Not all items can be picked up. Can be delivered. Not eligible for order pickup. Even though we had order pickup selected. Okay, yeah. So this is a very specific issue with a specific location and area for a specific product. Now, it is quite real, and you will have similar bugs to this. Probably it's also not just related to this specific area. It could be other multiple locations for that product. But what the issue here is, when we're looking at the specific product, we ask that we want to have it picked up in this area. We selected the store, but when we actually filtered by product available in stores to be picked up, when we actually went and clicked on the product that was shown to us, we see that it's actually not eligible for order or a pickup, um, which is weird. So if we're setting criteria for a product to be picked up in store and we received a list of products, all of them should be available to be picked up in the store. So there's some problem here with filtering, or maybe the process of it is not streamlined. So then you have steps to reproduce. They have to be clear. Um, Developer or scrum master or product owner have to be able to follow those through and understand how to trigger this issue. Um, the expected result is saying that, only available items should be on the page. And then there's actual results that says uh, not all items can be picked up, and this one serves as an example. There's a reproduction rate that's 100%. It happens every time. I normally don't put a reproduction rate how often something happens, unless it's a run-to-run issue, meaning that sometimes it does happen, sometimes it doesn't. There are issues like that you can like run 10 times or 100 times, and it will only trigger like 30 times. Nobody does 100, but like 10 runs. Out of 10 runs, only 3 times it happens. So then I normally mention run to run. Then you put an environment, so the developer can reproduce in exactly the same environments. Windows 10 home. It also could use a specific build. Mentioned here it's not, but we will be talking about that. Has a Google Chrome version at the time that it was filed. Has a screen resolution. Some of the bugs depended on the screen resolution, especially if you're testing like some art at the front end, or like images are cut off, not aligned properly. This particular probably doesn't need a screen resolution. And then there's attachment with a screenshot that has a highlighted area not eligible for order pickup. Now, for your screenshot software, I recommend using Lightshot. This looks like it was done in Paint. That's not very good. You don't want to have those screenshots. They look unprofessional. So when you use Lightshot, you can do a screenshot with um, the keys that are selected in the Lightshot program. You can change it in the settings, but when you highlight the area, you can then put whatever you want to emphasize on. You can save it on your machine and then attach to the JIRA, or you can do Control C to copy and then go to the body or the comments and do Control V to paste. Now, if you take a look at this screenshot, compare this area that's been highlighted with this highlight. This looks a lot more professional. So it's one of the tools that you can use and should use. It's free. I'm sharing the link. As your homework, you can now do two things. You can practice with taking screenshots and highlighting areas with Lightshot. Install it, obviously. And then the other one would be read more about different approaches to software development. So Waterfall, Agile, Scrum, Kanban. And if you're way curious about what else is there, read about others. They're like hybrids that are use different things, like maybe more focused or less focused on documentation or sprints, or how they set it up and stuff like that. What about if you want to record it? If you want to record it, I normally use OBS. It's also free, open source. Here I'm gonna give you a link for this. With OBS, how you normally do it, this is the screen. You select your added display that you want to capture. In here, you have a scene by default. You need to add the source. From the sources, you add a display capture. You select which display you want to capture, for example. Right now, we're capturing the other one where I have the chat open. And you go and do this. You can adjust and resize, so you don't have like time in, or you can zoom in on the issue. You don't have like tabs open, for example. in settings, you can here in settings you can choose your output where it's going to be saved. So you can select specific folder. It's okay to leave recording quality at high MP4. That's fine. You probably also want to mute desktop audio and microphone just in case if you like listening music while you work. Then you click start recording. You can show how to trigger the issue here. You stop it. I already said it will be saved. The location will be on my desktop, and here's the file, right? And then you can just drag and drop it or attach it to the bug. So I'm just gonna probably drag and drop it. And here was attached. Right. Now, on a mobile, there's you can do a little research how to record mobile devices. There's built-in features now that you record the screen. You can record screen on iPhone, on Android, and after you're done recording, you can email those files to yourself or just do AirDrop or whatever. If you're working with Mac, email if you're with PC, or put in some Google Drive and then download it and then attach it to the bug. Would be the priority medium or critical? What about if we want? Okay. Normally, all of the bugs you file with medium priority. If something really bad is happening, like you can't log in anymore, or you can't log in with invalid password, obviously it's the highest priority. You put it as a blocker. You go and talk to the manager right away, saying, "Okay, this thing is actually breaking our software, our product really badly," right? Things that are like something is not clickable, maybe something's not in proper place, uh, this filter is not working as it should. All of that can be set as medium priority. That's fine, because normally there are meetings called bugs triaging, where you with other QA members, maybe even with developers and QA manager, kind of go together through bugs and assign them priority based on the how bad the issue is. Do you have any resources to fix it right now? Can it wait? So priority is not only how bad the issue is. There's a lot of other factors in play. That's why you triage bugs and understand what are they fixable, are they bad. Sometimes you have a pretty bad issue, but it only affects like customers that using some old laptop. Maybe you have only 3 people that affected by that. Even if it's a bad issue, it's still going to be low priority because there be no resources to fix it. So could vary. Okay. Um, I'll miss I'll miss you guys being by myself with some other team in the company going to be working in. Okay. Any other questions? Now, with all this being shown, I know there's a lot. This is a lot of information. This is definitely a lot of information to understand. A lot of new things, but that's normal. This is a learning process. Rewatch the video. Don't stress out if you don't understand something, because we all start knowing nothing and then we learn as we go. Uh, we were going to repeat and talk about multiple things over and over again so you will understand and learn them better. But also take your time and start building a habit of doing research, reading stuff on your own, and kind of figuring out things. That's going to help you out a lot, and it's going to be like your pretty much a professional thing eventually. If you don't know, understand something, go and Google it right away. I have this thing right now when I talk to people and they present me with some facts, as they say, and I think it's kind of a work information now. All I do right now, I go and search it right away and tell them if those facts are actually real or not. That's kind of how it is. Uh, Doing a research is just part of me right now. So, and it will become part of you. Um, for those of you who are stressing about their language, I'm telling you this, get a Grammarly. It's also free. You can add it as a plugin to Chrome. It will highlight and tell you what to change. Like we were doing some stuff here, and remember when the Z was missed, right? I was typing it out here. Grammarly is analyzing. It actually highlighted that you need that there. So it will help you to avoid, is it? Asking me for a premium. You don't have to get premium. Like here, it highlights, okay, it shouldn't be there. Or this, right? Gives you right away. You can get a free version. You don't need the premium version. Premium version is like for people who's in college doing research papers. This is just enough to. Not sure why it's not highlighting Z anymore. To help out with writing emails, writing like bugs. And for those of you who stress out, okay, my English isn't that good. I'll tell you this: IT industry is full of accents and different types of Englishes. I don't know if you can say it like that, but in my team, you would see people from all over the world: Asia, Eastern Europe. Uh, I mean, really all over the place. China, India, Spain. Um, it's. I mean, there are Americans also born and raised here, but maybe at least half of devs and engineers are from different parts of the world. All of them have different accents, and still communication is going. Sometimes maybe it takes a little bit more time to explain yourself to, or to understand one another, but communication is always going, and English isn't the major concern here. Okay, you explained it in a way where it was simple to understand, so thank you. I'm glad. I'm glad that you were able to um, grasp a lot today. I mean, it's definitely hard, but as I said, don't stress about it. It's work in progress. You'll learn and understand more as we go, and you'll get better at it. And another thing that I wanted to tell you, when you start working as a QA engineer, you will eventually kind of develop your own style of doing QA. I don't know how to summarize it better, but the way how I approach testing, how I lay out things down by default, if there's no example to follow, will be a little bit different from other teachers. And all of us will have a little bit of a uniqueness to our approaches because we all have past job experience that we kind of carry on. And all of that job experience kind of builds into your own style of doing things. So you will be learning a lot and from different perspective. That's also great. I can tell you a funny story. When I was working at a company testing wireless chipsets, uh, and then I left the company, went to work to another place. One day I moved and I picked up the router that was provided by the company that I was hiring for the internet. They actually had the chip that I was working on as a commercial product. So this also talks about the importance of QA job, right? If I didn't do my job well and we release some sort of a faulty chip that would overheat it, you know, the router would reboot or hang all the time, and somehow it did get into the final stage and was commercialized, I would get the same faulty product at the end, you know. So QA is important. Remember that. Be proud because becoming a QA engineer is a lot. It's a great achievement. It's well paid, and it's not as hard as doing a development. Not as hard as doing as development. You will and in this profession, you will feel it at some point, or maybe you're already feeling it. You always feel like uh, you're missing out a lot of information, and you need to learn. And the thing with IT industry overall, I think the learning never stops, and even now, I start working on something, and it's something new. I feel stupid. I feel like I need to. Okay, I don't understand nothing. I need to start reading and figure out how this thing works. And I've been working here in QA for like 10 years, so it's never ending process. Just how it is. Um, and technology changes. You have to constantly learn more to keep up. Yeah, absolutely, that's true. So feeling like you don't know stuff, it will never leave you. It's gonna be following you um always in this field, but I think it's absolutely normal, and you just keep learning and learning and figuring out more things, it's an agile process, exactly. um yeah, and for me, and I think for you, repetition should be the key. um you didn't understand something, repeat it again, but do it more slowly. And while you do it, start taking notes. Take your time. I mean, when you start getting into the understanding of how things work, it will click. You don't, people normally don't learn like that. They don't normally grasp things from the watching a video, right? It takes multiple stages of learning. First you watch a video, then you rewatch the video, then you start taking notes, then you start actually doing something with your hands and practicing, and at some point, like, your learn-term memory kicks in and start grasping all that information. Before that, it's short-term memory, and normally short-term memory doesn't remember much, and it's gone the next day. So the key of learning is repetition. um, not being able to understand something from the first sight is absolutely normal, and just take your time and keep at it. The more you do it, the faster you're going to grasp it, the easier it's going to be, and then something else will come up, and then you'll have to start all over again. I don't like theory. I need to actually do it. Yeah, that's the thing. We will be doing a lot of the stuff hands on. But in terms of theory, right now, you need to just kind of see the big picture, and still rewatch this video. It's going to help a lot. Pause it, think about what I was saying if you don't understand it, right? Make notes. It will help you to get a better grasp of everything that we're talking today. Um, Yes, it's true. I'm an electronics engineer, and I already feel like I miss so much info. It's always exciting to learn. Thank you. Awesome, awesome. I'm happy that you're enjoying it. So, feeling like you don't understand something is a good thing, guys. Believe me. It's just means that you need to learn, and you'll be learning, and you are learning. All right. So I think that's it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed the class. Now, sorry for a small hiccup at the beginning with the timing and stuff. Uh, we are running now multiple groups in parallel, so we'll be working on better scheduling. And I think I'll see you on our next class. I think it will be SQL, but I'll see you soon anyway. And best of the luck on your journey. Bye.